Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Elemental War of Magic. I have been unable to record in the last couple of days. First off, I had issues with Camtasia. It was not, it wasn't compressing the file size of the recordings I was making to less than 2 gigabytes, which is the maximum for uploading to YouTube. And usually it only makes them like 42 megabytes, right in that range, for a 15-minute video on Camtasia, which is a pretty good compression, but it wasn't doing that at all. And so the recordings I had made were just showcasing something I left out in the video 1.5 of the menu, and that was the Sovereign editor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. But also, I'm currently on the 30th of August recording this, and the cable in our area has been knocked out, and I have cable internet, so it is not going to be uploaded most likely for a couple days after this. Alright, so you can see here, there's Jackie, the Sovereign I made, but we'll just go ahead and click Create a Sovereign. Alright, this is the overview menu. You've got basic stats. They're almost always in RPGs in some form or another. Strength is simply, as you can see here, increases your direct physical attack. It goes and combines with the attack rating of a weapon, and it will produce your total damage capability. Dexterity is the opposite. It increases your defense, and that will do the similar thing with your armor stat. So those two are pretty obvious. Intelligence increases the effectiveness of spells. What that really means is, like, almost all spells will say up to caster's intelligence or this portion of caster's intelligence. That's just dividing or taking this number, your intelligence, and using that in all those situations. Wisdom, you can only upgrade your wisdom at this menu. You can't do it in game. So it's a good idea if you're going to be a caster to do it here. It determines the number of action points it takes to cast spells in battle. So it's a very good idea if you're going to be a caster to make this thing a huge stat, because you will be able to cast much more frequently. Then Charisma is the, I kind of think it's useless. I'm not really into recruiting champions. You can already tell from the other videos. I don't really like the adventure research tree, so I'm biased against it. But here all it does is not even that significantly reduce the cost of recruiting a champion. Because on Jackie, I have the stat lowered all the way down to 5, which is the lowest you can make it by default. And he still only had to pay about 100 for what something that normally on skill level of 10 costs about 40. So, you know, not that big a deal. Constitution obviously is just straight up health. You will, if you have 10 Constitution, you have 10 health. You can modify your health through in-game items though, so you don't really need to worry that much about it. But if you got extra points left over, I wouldn't really recommend on putting it on any of the other stuff but Constitution, because that will help you more than any other stuff will. The spellbooks, if you're going to be a caster, you should get all of these, because all of these have very good spells, and you never know what shard you're going to land by to begin with, so it's a good idea to have all your bases covered. The way it goes is fire, obviously, is fire spells. There's a lot of offensive spells in the fire category. Then earth, seems like there's quite a few enchantments available for earth, like Nature's Ally, that was one. Nature's Bounty, that's another one that increases your food in a city. There are some attacking ones, but there's also, I mean, they're not really that practical, because one of the earth spells that's tactical is just to put a stone wall up on one of the tiles so that an enemy cannot walk into it. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that's useful. A lot of the earth stuff's kind of like that though. Enchantment is, that's just straight up spells that would like imbue champion I believe that as an enchantment spell, but it's stuff like that. It's just making stats different on units somehow, buff and debuff. Air is, as you've seen, it does have some offensive spells like lightning and chain lightning, although I think the main focus of air is on tactical buffing basically, and some debuffs, because you can, a lot of the spells like haste and quicken and other things, that comes from the air category, so it's good to have. Water, I haven't really seen that many water spells. I've seen a couple of them that are ice, and it seems to just be mimicking fire, a lot of offensive stuff, pretty much the same attack and everything, so I guess it's still good to have because you never know if you're going to get a water shard. And lastly, summoning, you pretty much gotta have this one if you're going to be relying on a caster sovereign, because this is how you're going to be able to defend your sovereign early in the game. Now, so there are some spells like the Nature's Ally that don't take summoning. All you need is like Earth, Air, Fire, whatever. But summoning allows you to get mana unassociated creatures like the Familiar. So those guys can stay with you throughout the whole game. They're very good as actual companions because they can level up rather quickly. Alright, professions, whatever. They just kind of give you different stat bonuses. I don't really bother with them because a lot of these professions are things you can get. Actually, all of them are things you can get just by recruiting an adventurer from the world. So if you really want the bonus of prestige or increased movement, that stuff, you just can recruit yourself an adventurer with that stat. Alright, talents. This is kind of the same way as the professions. They give you certain bonuses per turn. I don't really bother with them because they cost a lot of points, and honestly, one tech knowledge per turn is not that much. So, I mean, all of these are basically the same way. Diplomatic might be worthwhile at the beginning of the game, because if you establish a good beginning, then you can get way better outcomes diplomatically towards the end of the game. Weaknesses, they give you points, but the only one I would really recommend actually picking is probably the ugly statistic, because if you're doing it like with a sovereign oriented game, then you don't need children because you can simply use Imbue Champion. So it's not that big a deal. In appearance, this is obviously just picking how your sovereign looks. You can pick the main color, trim. Yeah, not going to make much of a difference because you're going to get different equipment in the main game anyways. This stuff, I don't recommend getting any of it because of the high cost in points and the relatively low cost in gold or Gildar in the actual game. But I did go ahead on Jackie. I got a War Staff just because all of the stats that I wanted to max out were already maxed out, and I had some points left over, so I went ahead and picked the War Staff. Now I don't get this, but the staff costs just as much as the War Staff, but the War Staff does the same stats except 1 more damage. I don't know why you would ever pick the staff if you could pick the War Staff. I think they've got to patch that or something, and it's supposed to cost less for the staff. I don't know. Alright, so that's the main equipment. Then you can go and check like different poses. This is for not the portrait that you'll see your sovereign in. This is kind of the way they'll be standing on the world map. You can change facial features, hairstyle, that stuff there, whatever. Then there's an auto backstory it gives you, and it's the same one for every custom sovereign. They're like in a mine and they touched a relic of the Cataclysm, and then they get magic powers. So that's that. You could have hit next on that sovereign menu there, and it would have enabled you to pick a portrait, but I don't really want to do that because I'm going to be loading up the other game here in a second. But this is going to be video 2.5 just because I forgot to cover the Sovereign. And I also want to show you this is what the campaign looks like. It is a book broken into chapters, which are just individual missions. So yeah, this is almost exactly how Galactic Civilizations 2 did their campaign. And that was the brief overview of the features that were missed in the video 1.5. And next I'll get on to some gameplay.